Welcome to our second week of our Lenten Devotional series, Again and Again, by Sanctified Art. This week, our focus is on Again and Again. We are called to listen. A poem written by Reverend Sarah R. entitled, Truth That Ricochets. I went to a lecture once, an interfaith conversation with interfaith leaders. Whispers bounced off the church tile floors as people shuffled into place, carrying hope alongside assumptions, mixed into pockets like loose change. About halfway through the evening, a young woman in a blue hijab began speaking. She was the youngest person on the panel, seated to the far left. You might almost miss her if you weren't paying attention, but not here, not when she spoke. In quiet determination, she told us of fear and persecution. She told us of hatred and racial slurs thrown at her people from car windows like bombs. It was a truth I did not know. And that truth ricocheted like sunlight through the cathedral windows, touching almost everyone that day. Then a man in the back, who could have been me, who has been me, approached the microphone and said, "Your people are persecuted. You live in fear. You are battered by hate." If that is true, then why am I hearing about it just now? Why is your story not in the news? Why have you not spoken up about it? And the air was still, partly because we held our breath in anticipation, and partly because the Spirit slows her dance when we stand at the edge of truth. The woman in the blue hijab leaned into the microphone and whispered with a quiet strength that can come only from years of practice. We are screaming. If there is one truth in my life that unfolds again and again, it is the need to listen. For again and again I will try, with good intentions, to act and walk with love. But again and again I will make mistakes. Again and again I will say the wrong thing. Again and again they will call me Peter. And again they will be right. So again and again, I will pray for a truth that ricochets, for ears that will listen, and for space to hold truth. If people are screaming, and to be clear, people are screaming, I do not want to miss it. The Holy Gospel from Mark, beginning with the 8th chapter. Jesus began to teach them that the Son of Man must undergo great suffering and be rejected by the elders, the chief priests and the scribes, and be killed, and after 3 days rise again. He said all this quite openly, and Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him. But turning and looking at his disciples, he rebuked Peter and said, "Get behind me, Satan, for you are setting your mind not on divine things, but on human things." He called the crowd with his disciples and said to them, "If any want to become my followers, let them deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me. For those who want to save their life will lose it, and those who lose their life for my sake and for the sake of the gospel will save it. For what will it profit them to gain the whole world and forfeit their life? Indeed, what can they give in return for their life? Those who are ashamed of me and of my words in this adulterous and sinful generation, of them the Son of Man will also be ashamed when he comes in the glory of his Father with the holy angels. A commentary from the Reverend Denise Anderson. As she writes, I'm a black woman who does anti-racism education and advocacy in a very white denomination. I do that work often in the face of fierce opposition from fellow Christians, but it's not hard to understand why. Think of the times we've tried to quiet a friend who is going through a tough time, or averted our eyes away from someone asking for money at a street corner. Approximately 75% of sexual assaults in the United States go unreported for a reason. We don't exactly incentivize the telling of hard truths. Hard truths trouble the waters of our understanding and challenge notions of what is real. For Peter, hearing Jesus foretell his agonizing death and resurrection must have made no sense. Just before this, he had named Jesus Messiah, and according to other Gospels, Jesus in turn named him Peter. How could the Christ talk like this? Peter wants to quiet Jesus. Jesus would instead quiet him. At Jesus' transfiguration, a sight that may have been more in line with Peter's messianic imagination. He wants to build altars to mark the event. But again, Peter is quieted. He is told to listen. The Lenten journey calls us to examine the things in which our hearts are invested. How important is comfort to us? Would we be willing to listen to hard truths and be changed by them if it proved to be difficult? Or are we committed to the status quo? Though it may be imperfect, it's at least familiar. Again and again, we are implored to listen, especially when what we hear is unsettling. Repentance means changing direction. Like a heavenly GPS, Spirit is highlighting a new path. May we tune our sensors heavenward, despite the difficulties along the way.